Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey Lemon, Senior Technical Marketing Manager for the Cloud Management Business Unit here at VMware, and I want to welcome you to our webinar where we focus on providing tips and tricks to help you get the most out of the Skyline service. And we're going to do something special for today's webinar. Today we have Beth Souza of Senac Minas, a professional educational institution in Brazil, and she's going to share her experience with Skyline and how she's used the service to avoid unplanned downtime. And Beth, I want to thank you before we even get started today because I know that English isn't your native language. So it takes a lot of courage to present here today. But I know that your enthusiasm for the Skyline service is going to translate very well. And in addition to Beth, we have a veritable who's who of VMware experts. We have product marketing managers Michelle Clopton and David Pham. We have Josh Laurie, as well as senior technical marketing manager Nick Fritsch, our Skyline top guns, and they're going to be monitoring our Q&A pod and answering your questions. So make sure that you use the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen there. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start with an overview of the Skyline service, where I'll highlight how it works and its key benefits. And then I'm going to turn it over to the star of our session, Beth, and we'll talk about how the service specifically benefits her and the environments that she manages. And then we're going to end with a call to action. And if there's any time remaining, we'll do some live Q&A. And with that, let's get into a quick overview of the Skyline service by putting it in the context of how you work day by day. As a customer, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the reactive support scenario, right? You experience an issue in your environment, you open an SR with VMware, and our tech support team troubleshoots and works with you to solve that issue. Well, VMware Skyline is the next step in that process. It's a proactive support technology, meaning that it can actually help you avoid issues before they even happen so that you don't even have the problem in the first place. Skyline also helps resolve existing issues faster. So say, for example, if you have a case open with us, our tech support engineers can use Skyline to view your environment specific configurations, and then they can use data-driven analytics to speed discovery and ultimately drive faster resolution times. And Skyline's automated detection and proactive remediation guidance actually helps you strengthen your environments. And so with this service, you can actually avoid IT downtime, and then you can reallocate that time to do more valuable work. But here's the best part, right? Skyline is available at no additional cost with your active production or Premier support contract, as well as Success 360. And I'm happy to say that Skyline is now included in vRealize Cloud Universal subscriptions. And speaking of environment configurations, Skyline recently started to support VMware Cloud Foundation 4.1 and higher. As you know, VCF is the industry's leading hybrid cloud platform. And with that new level of support, right, Skyline will identify VCF management and workload domains and even surface VCF solution-based proactive findings. And then there's the existing support for vSphere, NSX, vSAN Horizon, as well as vRealize Operations Manager. There's also a Skyline management pack for VROP. So if you install it, you're going to see Skyline's proactive findings and recommendations within the VROPS client. And these capabilities are driving value to customers like you and our guest speaker here today. We're hearing that Skyline helps our customers avoid constantly being in that firefighting mode. Our customers are reducing costly downtime, which is often caused by misconfigurations. And the increased network reliability translates into less time fixing errors, right? And so to date, Skyline has helped customers identify nearly 60 million objects in their environments with potential issues, and our customers have proactively resolved more than 60% of those on their own. And when there's times, right, where you may need to react to an issue that Skyline hasn't proactively resolved, Skyline can support you here as well through our log assist feature, which is actually 17 times faster than the manual upload and transfer process. So how does Skyline work, right, to actually enable those types of benefits? Well, first you install and configure a lightweight appliance called the Skyline Collector into your environment. And then once a collector is installed and configured to your endpoints, right, it then listens to start collecting product usage data. And then based on this data, Skyline performs a comprehensive analysis of environment details. And then Skyline acts to provide proactive findings and recommendations via a web-based portal. And whenever I use that slide to highlight how the Skyline Collector works, I inevitably get questions around security. So let's talk about it. The collector appliance is separate from the customer environment. Data is transmitted by an encrypted channel, and product usage data is encrypted at rest. All data is tagged with legally identifiable customer information, and no customer data is stored in the collector or shared with third parties without expressed approval. And I also want to point out that Skyline is SOC 2 compliant and that data is encrypted in transit as well as at rest. And with that, let's transition over to our customer interview. So as I stated, we had Beth Souza. She's an administrator from Senac Minas. Again, they're a professional education institution that has a presence in 40 municipalities in Brazil. They adopted Skyline in 2018 as part of their production support contract. And what I really like about Beth's story is that she has unified the support and management experience by integrating Skyline, Dell Support Assist, and vRealize operations respectively, right, to proactively avoid unplanned downtime and speed resolution times when issues did appear. And to give everyone a quick snapshot, Senac Minas is leveraging Skyline to monitor its environment, which actually consists of vSphere, vSAN, vRealize operations, and VxRail solution tags across 4 hosts and 159 VMs. And to date, Beth has been able to use Skyline to identify 75 issues where she's been able to remediate 72% of those on her own. And with that, I want to welcome Beth. And Beth, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and your key areas of expertise?
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth. I work at Senac Minas. I'm IT analyst, and I work over 20 years in IT. And I'm VMware leader. I'm a VMware vExpert Cloud Management, and I'm to vExpert Pro. I have a lot of things and work with the community. And I'm here today to say, talk about my experience with Skyline to help us to manage our environment.
That's great, Beth. And so with that, let's just go ahead and just jump right into the first question here. Beth, can you give everybody in the audience here, a snapshot of your digital transformation over the last few years? What are your key areas of focus for your business?
Well, today, Senac Minas is focused on implementing new technology for hybrid education, not only because of the pandemic, but also to provide access to products and services, which are professional courses and online and in-person education. Our goals are to improve technology and offer new products. We have a lot of products and services, undergraduate, grades, and technical courses. The market is driving this digital transformation, and making company more mature by adding more value to the products offered.
Very, very good. Very good. You mentioned the pandemic. 2020 was a very challenging year for everyone. So
Yes.
with that being said, how has your company, adapted and maintained, that business resiliency, and more importantly, what role did Skyline actually play in your efforts there?
Well, we use VM solution to ensure the resilience and keep the environment safe and viable. You have Skyline as a fundamental tool to help us with the proactive management and give recommendations on corrections and product updates. This helps us to have the necessary visibility of the environment and integrate it with another tools like a visualized operations manager.
Right.
So we can have the Skyline hard work for us.
Right. That's great. And so, you mentioned a couple things there. You mentioned the whole idea around the proactive findings and the recommendations and the visibility, which actually is sort of segues into the question here about, the reason why you started to use Skyline and how you're using it. And so with that, since you started using it in 2018 and you talked about Skyline's proactive findings and giving you the visibility in terms of updates and things of that nature, how has your usage, changed over time since you've adopted Skyline?
Well, I have no doubt. Skyline is a very powerful tool. And we realized that Skyline could add a lot of value because our routine that you have to manage the environment, Skyline give us the right information to act in the right time. And very important to us is the visibility to solve any kind of problem like criticals and updates that the environment needs. Skyline to us is a tool that is always on. Over time, the product has become very relevant. So now we can manage the environment without Skyline.
That's great. You mentioned a couple things there. And so, you mentioned the whole idea around, Skyline always being on. It's almost like having an additional member of your team, so by having someone or this tool or this service, giving you, like you said, that right information at the right time, and it's always on, it's constantly working around the clock. And I'm sure that, you're able to sort of, like you said, see a lot of bit of benefits from that. And one of the things that you said was this whole idea around, the information component, again, the right info at the right time. And you also mentioned that you're using vRealize operations on-prem. And so, with that said, obviously, since you're in Skyline, I'm sure you've seen the operational overview dashboard and all that information that it provides you. And so with that being said, what benefits do you see within the operational overview dashboard and all the information that it provides you?
I have to say that we don't need to worry about the environment because Skyline always notifies us about any problem. And the operational overview is a great resource to have a valuable overview of the status of the infrastructure components. And this view we can share with all team and our manager when we need to talk about some kind of problem. For example, a simple view is the version of the VM tools, so where we can focus the the actions when you need update the environment, for example.
Right. Very, very good. And so, you know, at the top of the the intro here, I talked about vRealize operations and the management pack, for Skyline. And since you're using vRealize operations, can you talk about some of the benefits that that management pack is providing you in terms of all the rich and deep information that you're able to leverage from that management pack?
vRealize Operations Management Pack for Skyline is an additional resource. We can join the best of tools in same place, and you have this integration result in a benefit of well-defined alarms for critical events. In vRealize Operations Manager, you can see Skyline information on dashboard and even customize it. Okay, we can see information about the environment, and we can see information about Skyline health, like a problem with a connection, for example. And you have reports that you can schedule to send to the team to know how what's happened during the month, what kind of problem you had in this period, for example.
Very, very good. And so with that being said, I'm going to sort of segue into this question here. You've already sort of spoke on it a little bit in terms of like some of the reasons why you're using this technology. You talked about the rich and robust information. You talked about the visibility. You talked about it always being on, and how Skyline is basically an extended member of your team that gives you just more visibility. But if you had to point to one reason or to convince a colleague to use Skyline, what reason or a compelling reason would you tell them in terms of the benefits in terms of adopting this technology?
Well, I think that visibility is the main reason. Another thing is the proactive support, because you don't need to worry about if one or another component is up or down, for example. Okay.
Right. Yeah, you're doing more valuable work at that point because you're able to let Skyline do a lot of the work for you.
Yes, yes. Skyline
exactly
makes the hard work for us.
That's great. That's great. And so, that's actually a good sort of transition to the next question that I have for you here in terms of, you talked about Skyline's proactive findings. You talk about how Skyline gives you insight into updates and allows you to see, findings based on level of severity. You particularly mentioned critical findings and things like that. And so with all the information that Skyline provides you in terms of upgrade recommendations, level of severity in terms of some of the findings, and just the proactive nature of Skyline in general, how do you take all that information and then you develop and implement your remediation plans? Can you talk about that at a high level, please?
Yes, you create with our business partners after check all recommendations. And this is possible because Skyline is help us providing this kind of information. The implementation happens without downtime, and we apply the remediation one by one. After that, we validate in Skyline, so we can make sure that update happens correctly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you can check another recommendation, for example.
Right.
So we can more time to analyze and take action about the implementation.
Yeah, so you're able to sort of focus on the things that are most important in terms of level of
Yes,
severity. You can focus on the things that are
yes,
most critical, and then you can sort of go down the list and go to moderate. And if you like, even some of the trivia findings as well. So it gives you that insight and that.
right.
That's great. And so, with that being said, earlier in the presentation here, as part of the intro, we talked about how you're able to remediate about 72% of the findings that Skyline has surfaced to you. And so I'm wondering, during those remediations, did you do all those on your own? Or did you use log assist in some of those? And if you did use log assist in some of those remediations, can you talk about that process and the benefits of log assist? That's one of the cornerstone features of Skyline. So I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would like to know about your experience with it.
Log analysis is very critical to identify the cause of a particular problem, okay? You don't need log assist, help us to make more easy
Yeah.
the interaction between the environment and the VMware support, okay?
Yep.
So we can upload our use of the logs from the environment.
Yep.
And we don't need more upload the logs and send to the support. With log assist, we have this process automatic, okay?
Yes. Yes.
The custom only force is approve or deny the log request from support team. Upon approval, Skyline collector orchestrates log recovery and send to the support.
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, you said something that reminded me, when I talk to a lot of customers about, the log assist feature, they say that prior to it, the traditional process of sending log bundles is very, very time consuming. They may have to go to several different locations to generate these log bundles. And whereas with Skyline, it's all done in one single environment, it's centralized and it's automatically sent. It's a lot faster. We talked about earlier it being 17 times faster. And then you just mentioned, just at a high level, that the tech support team can actually request log bundles as well. And so you can send them, or as you're working with our support teams, they can request them too. And you can either accept or deny the request, which makes that collaboration, between you and the support team at VMware just even more easy to do.
We don't need to interact with the support to send the logs, and Skyline is setting up to do this for us.
That's perfect. And so with that, we talked about the information that Skyline provides and the visibility and all the great things that you are able to do with it. And so my next question is, how do you quantify the benefits that Skyline provides? You talked about reports and sending them to management. And so do you have any anecdotal information or even any metrics that talks about how it's helped you be more productive or reduce downtime or anything along those lines?
Well, I think that the benefits are many, but the main thing is the ability to identify the critical points. We are currently planning to implement the recommendation given by Skyline. We no longer worry about looking for this recommendation. Skyline always remembers us, keeps us informed all the time.
Perfect. And so with that, got one last question for you, Beth. In terms of any parting advice for our audience here today. What are some of your best practices or tips and tricks that you would like to give your peers in the audience today who could be interested in using the Skyline service?
The most important tip is to keep the Skyline up to date. we set up the collector for automatic updates. I think that
Yes.
is very important. Okay, so we cannot worry about, but Skyline informs us about new updates. The integration with Realize Operation Manager is a tip to obtain the best of each project in a centralized way, so you can keep all relevant information in the same place. Okay, we have a holistic view.
Yep.
That
single pane of glass.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And I believe that many clients still do not know the power of Skyline, how much it can assist in manage the environment in a very simple way, but with such valuable quality of information that it will reduce the team's work effort in the daily infrastructure maintain routines. And I feel comfortable to say that Skyline has transformed the way we manage our environment. We are confident that it provides the information for us, the relevant information, to have the best of VMware solutions.
And with that, that concludes our webinar. Beth, I want to thank you for taking the time to share with the world your experience with the Skyline service. And for everyone in the audience, right, you can get started using Skyline today. All you have to do is just go to that Get Started link on this page and you can install Skyline. And you can also visit the other URLs listed here for additional information, including FAQs. And if you are a Skyline customer, make sure that you check out that free trial of vRealize Operations Cloud so that you can take full advantage of the unified support and management experience that Beth talked about. And I also want to mention that Skyline has a moderated community who can answer your technical questions. And so we encourage you all to check that community out. And speaking of communities, be sure to check out our new YouTube channel where you can search through our video library for the latest product information, industry insights, how-to guides, and even on-demand webinars. And with that, we want to thank you for your time, and we'll see you again next month.